Welcome to a low light slash vlogging video test. You guys requested I take a little bit more time to look at the specific function and performance of the M50 with these lens options in low light. So we're going to do that today with 3 lens options in this order. The 11 to 22 millimeter f4 first. We're also going to take a look at the 22 millimeter f2, and we're going to take a look at the speed boosted EF-50 millimeter lens, which in that order, it should be better and better as it performs in different low light settings. We're going to look at indoor low light, outdoor low light, autofocusing capabilities with that as well. And I'll even timestamp in my comments so you can jump to the lens you're more interested in if you want to just skip to that lens. Now, right off the bat, we are inside this room here, indoors at night, with some pretty decent lighting. These are 100 watt, 5000 Kelvin lights. And this is the 11 millimeter setting at f4 on the M50 right now. And as you can see, shooting at 1000 ISO, it's just fine. It's a nice shot. You get good colors, good definition, and we're on face tracking autofocus. And you can see right here, it's going to focus really quickly, right back to my face, almost immediately. Yeah, and there's going to be no problem with that at all because shooting with this setting is just fine. This isn't really low light. But let's knock out these lights and switch to just a single top light source that's 60 watt. It's the typical light you would see in your home that has that nice warm type color to it. Boom, there you go. Now of course Canon does a great job at white balancing on its own, and right now I have it on just find the widest white balance on your own, which is a great setting to utilize if you're just off the cuff going. But really when it comes down to these kind of lights, I probably would do a custom setting. Now I'm on manual, so I'm going to bump it up to 3200 ISO, still shooting 30 frames per second. Should mention that too. This is all going to be 30 frames per second, 1080p. And this is 11 millimeters f4 still. And as you can see, there's the quality difference between 1000 ISO and 3200. And you can make a judgment for yourself if you still think this is usable video. I typically don't like to shoot at that high of an ISO, but I think it is definitely usable, as you can see here. I don't like this lighting because obviously it's not the best to top-down light your subject if you're trying to do something vlog style, but it happens. It happens a lot. But you're going to see here, the autofocus is pretty much just as quick. It's not losing my face at all, and it's going to come off my hand or straight back to my face. Maybe a little more sluggish. No, just kind of depends on what you actually did. Okay, it's working quite well right there. But this isn't really what you guys are looking for, is it? This isn't true low light, right? This is just a single source, normal room lighting, pretty well lit for our human eye. But check this out. Boom. Alright, so here we are, single 60 watt light source at my 3 o'clock coming in around the corner through the doorway. It's no direct light at all. It's just bouncing off of a wall into the room. And at 3200, as you can see, shooting at f4, it's just not enough. So we're going to bump this up to 6400. Still not enough, I would say. Let's bump it up to 10,000. 12,800? I mean, you could probably use it at 10,000, but and it's face tracking too. It's face tracking. You can see the face tracking better now. Yeah, this is an ISO I wouldn't want to shoot at all. And this is the limitation of an f4 aperture. And part of the sacrifice I was mentioning in this lens review about how the fact that this is compact and affordable, they sacrifice the speed of the lens. You know, so it's something that you can use in lower light, but this type of lighting where there's no direct light source, you're going to see this graininess. You guys can see you should be able to see now how grainy the ISO is making the image. I mean, it's like there's ants dancing in the frame with me. But there you go, there's a limitation. And this is indoors. Now check it out when we jump outside and just have some dim moonlight as well as some very dim light sources coming off of street lamps and porch lights and things of the like. All right, here we go. So outdoor lighting, obviously with the porch light blasting right on me, shooting at 6400 ISO still isn't a problem. So here you go, 6400 ISO, still has face tracking, no problem. Check this out. We're going to jump out of this light and we're going to go down into the great unknown. At 6400 ISO and that limitation on that frame rate, you're going to see that it's basically impossible to make out my face. Face tracking is gone. Can't see me at all. And it's just, this is not going to be a usable shot. Now, if we bump this up to 12,800, that's as much as we can do with this particular rig setup. And this is the limitation, I would say, and I mentioned this in the review of this lens, the limitation is going to be here. You know, as long as you have some light source, right? This is about 100, 150 feet away. You're gonna start making out a little bit of the face. You're gonna have to even, here, it's like 100 feet away, right? You get the light source close to you, you can start to make out an image, but it's not gonna be very high quality, and that's why the faster lens is so valuable. And this is why I was mentioning, as far as that 22mm f2 that we're gonna look at next, I would never replace this lens with that. This is a great wide angle lens. It's great for those daytime shots. Oh, it's kind of catching my face. Look at that. It's kind of catching my face. It loses it occasionally. It's trying to find it. Just needs a teeny bit of light. And this was great. If you're doing this downtown, anywhere outside where there's people and there's some lighting, consistent lighting, you're not gonna have a problem. It's just when you're out in the middle of that gap. See, look at that gap there. There's just no light source anywhere near. You get anywhere near a street lamp, and you're gonna be better off. Like, you're actually gonna have some usable footage. It's gonna pick up that face tracking autofocus again, but it's just not that great if you can't go a little bit faster than f4. And there you have it, the 11mm in low light. It's good or as bad as it gets. Let's jump over to the 22mm. Boom, and here we are back in the room. I've got the 5000 Kelvin lights back on, and of course, right now we're shooting with a 22mm, a little bit different field of view, as you can see. And we're shooting at f2 now, so it's gonna let in a lot more light, and so the ISO only has to be 320 for this particular shot. Now, the face tracking isn't gonna have an issue with this particular setup right now, and you're gonna see how fast kind of autofocus is. It still sees my face for some reason. It saw my face through the hand. What's interesting though is when you get this depth of field change, I wonder if I should bump up the ISO. It's an interesting fade. It's cinematic, but it's typically not that slow. But there you have it. There's the accuracy and speed currently of the autofocusing system with the 22mm lens. 30 frames per second, f2, ISO 400. Now we're gonna cut off these lights. Single 60-watt source coming from above, and it's still fine here, but I'm gonna bump it up to 800 ISO. And that's about right. About 800 here. So this is a direct light source in the room, still at f2, and you're gonna see it's pretty good at 800 ISO, still a very tolerable ISO to use for video, for vlogging of course. There's your face tracking, it's already caught it. It's being very cinematic on its change. Let's see the speed. 1, 2, okay, 1, 2, 3, about 3 to get back. All right, let's drop this even lower. Here's our indoor shot, no direct light source. It does have face tracking currently in this, still ISO 800, but we're gonna have to bump that up. Let's go to 1000, no, 1600. Let's go to 3200. Let's go to 6400. Okay, there's your 6400. That's about right. So 6400, I don't know if I'd go any more than that. It was maxed out, yeah, 6400 is about right. So this is the indirect 60-watt light coming around the corner, bouncing off of a white wall, well, you know, eggshell colored wall. And there you have it. I would probably take this off again of the white balance, auto white balance mode, and customize it, but there's no need for that right now. We're just looking at the autofocus and the ability to capture in low light. Check this out. Autofocus speed is the same. No difference there. It catches my, it sees my face through my hand sometimes. Yep. You can track it just fine. A little too close. Far away. Close. It lags behind it a little bit, you can see that, but that's the normal speed of the autofocusing system. All right, let's jump outside and see how this performs outdoors with that light gap between houses. Okay, now I'm going to start us off at ISO 3200. Keep in mind we're still at 30 frames per second, f2 on the 22mm. And one thing to keep in mind is you're probably going to want like one of those extended tripods that curves you can mold around, because it's going to be a lot easier to hold this a little bit farther away from you instead of using your arm. Now as I step away from the light source, you're going to see we're going to have to jump this up. So, moment of truth. ISO 6400. Now this is what's pretty cool about this. As you can see, way different from f4 on the previous lens to this at f2. Now, it's got the face tracking just fine, right? It can focus on the distance. bring it right back to my face, catches it right away. And that's the beauty of the autofocusing system here. It's got no problem if you letting in enough light to hit the sensor. We could bump that up a little bit higher too. Let's see what happens if we go up to 8,000. Might be a worthy sacrifice there. It's a little bit more lit, and there is literally no close direct light source here. So it's something that, you know, the value of this particular prime lens lies right here. Part of the value, at least. I mean, if you go back and look at my review, it does phenomenal photography, great video shots. You're going to be missing a little bit of that stability. Some people think you don't need it, but depending on how your vlogging style is, you may want a little bit of stability, a gimbal or something, because this is me just walking, not doing much to try and limit the shaking. But there you go. There's a low light performance of the 22mm at f2 outdoors. Right now shooting at 8,000 ISO. Dropping it down to 5,000. Sweet spot's probably 6,400. Okay, last but certainly not least, we're back in the room with the Viltros speed booster combined with the EF-50mm 1.8 lens boosted down to a 1.2, and we are shooting wide open at 1.2. And right now with the 100 watt 5,000 Kelvin lights, it only has to shoot at ISO 100. You could even bump it maybe a little bit up to 125 here, or maybe 160, right? And as you can see, you know, it's beautiful, right? You get this really thin depth of field, amazing bokeh, and of course the autofocusing system is going to work just fine. Let's knock out these lights and see how it performs with a little lower light. Okay, so here's your single source top down 60 watt light bulb. I'm going to jump up to, let's go 320 ISO. It's probably all you're going to need. Autofocusing system right on par. Face tracking working just fine. You can bring that field of view in and out. Seems almost a little snappier than the 22mm. That's interesting. With the speed booster. The non-proprietary speed booster. You can jump up a little higher if you want to maybe ISO 640. Just depends on the look you're looking for. What I love is playing around up to 1,000. It's just all fun and games. Just what are you looking for? What does your eye enjoy? And anywhere right there kind of looks good to me. I kind of like this a little bit better. Let's go, let's see, 800. 1,000 is probably a little too much. Yeah, 1250 is a little too much. 1,000s, yeah. 800. Yeah, 640 is pretty okay. That or a little bit lower maybe. Looks good to me. But the main point here is autofocusing works well. No problems in this lighting. Now let's go to an indirect 60 watt light source. Boom, okay, there you go. So indirect 60 watt light source. We're at 800 ISO right here. So face tracking is going to work no problem even in this low light. Okay, but let's jump it up to a usable image because that doesn't look good at all. So there's 2,000, here's 3,200. Seems okay. 3,200 would be usable right there. Okay, face tracking is working okay. Let's see if we can get too close for comfort. There you go. Bring it back. Autofocusing working just fine. This is indirect 60 watt lighting inside. Shooting wide open at f1.2. Now this is currently the fastest setup I have available. So I'm excited to see how this performs outside with extremely low levels of light. Check this out. Okay, so bear with me on this shot because this is as far as my arm goes and I don't have the tripod I'm waiting for this particular vlogging style shot. It's in the mail. Let's wait for it. It's going to come out with an accessory video. But check it out. We are currently shooting at f1.2 wide open, 30 frames per second at 1250 ISO. And as you can see here, it's just fine. 1250 when we're right next to that porch light. But let's walk on down into the night. There we go, losing a little bit of our, All right, so we're going to switch to ISO. Let's bump it up here in the dark. 2,000, 3,200. Okay. I was doing some editing back there, so I'm going to saw what it looked like with the other lenses, so I'm going to bump this up to 6,400. Okay, we're in this nice dark zone where there's not a lot of direct lighting near us. I'm going to go to the background. There's a focus speed. I'm right in front of it again. There it is. So face tracking with me this close to this thin depth of field was still working to catch the face, but was having a harder time really coming back to focus on me. Now we bumped it up here to 12,800 ISO. When I do that, you can see there's quite a bit of light in our shot here. It's quite clearly made, and let's see how the autofocus functions with that. It's there. It's tough with this thin depth of field, but it can do it. And there you go. Before my arm gets too fatigued, there's our last lens working out in the darkness of night. This is the max ISO setting. Depending what you want to use. It's a little grainy. Knocking it down to 6400 can help, but it's going to be a little bit darker of a shot, and it's also going to give the autofocus a little bit more of a challenge. That still works. There you go, it still works. And there you go, a more technical video on the low light performance of these 3 lens options on the Canon M50 body. I hope that answered some of your questions on how these lenses perform in real world use, and it gave you some idea of how they might work for you, for your own purposes, and using these lenses for yourself. Now, as always, don't forget to let me know what you think. Post down in the comments below which lens you think worked best, how you think they all performed in the different low light situations, and which ones you think you might use for yourself. And of course, stay tuned, because I do have the EFM 32mm f1.4 STM lens to review next, and I'm excited about this one because this may actually be a better performing lens than even the boosted 50mm in low light. So check it out on the next video with drive-by reviews.